You're listening to Death of the Reader. This is Flex and Hertz here on your Murder Mystery World Tour. We are talking Ngaio, Marsh and Stella Duffy's Money in the Morgue.
That's the one.
Today we are talking chapters 12 to 23. I am the fresh meat who has to come in here and solve that. I'm very scared.
I know you are.
I am genuinely very concerned about this one.
We were just talking before we went live that I have stopped the story at a point where there may not even be enough clues to solve the mystery, but I know that Flex here is a champion of this stuff. He is the veteran of our hearts, let's say.
Yep.
I think that if we were to go any further forward, it would just be too easy for you. So we've stopped here at the end of chapter 23. See what you've got. See if you can figure out everything.
Alrighty. Well, Herds, I think first of all, before we get into our normal, our normal rubbish about the story, I want to start off with saying I think there are two different crimes going on here.
Sure.
We'll get into those coming up in the last part of the show today.
Sure, that's a good throw forward. I like that.
That is my premise for everything I'm going to be saying today.
Okay. I
love these interrogation scenes.
Oh, they're perfect, aren't they?
They're just so good.
They're so well paced. That is the number one thing I will say about these interrogation scenes is that when we're dealing with someone who's really uppity and really talkative, it's like lightning, you know, watching Mr. Glossop go, watching these characters like go back and forth and back and forth. But then there are these really tense scenes like the interrogation with Rosamund, who's like, detective, a pleasure to meet you. Come into my garden, let us have a battle of wits. And then there's the conversations with Sarah Warren and the doctor, where Alleyn specifically takes these characters to, he says, where would you like to have a chat with me? Would you like to sit down and have a couple of tea? Shall we go for a walk? And those scenes are just so slow and carefully paced. I am 100% with you. I think that the strongest part of this novel is this central section going over these different characters and getting to know them in a very intimate and personal way. I love it.
I particularly love the way that Alleyn juggles and the way that Duffy juggles Alleyn being either forwards in his interrogations or just letting the person talk. Because for people like Glossop, they just go. And he just occasionally has to throw in the odd line here and there. Whereas, other people, he really needs to work it out of them, particularly when he's talking with Hughes about his trauma from the war.
Yep.
The way that scene is conveyed so that Alleyn is, being sensitive but still pressing is so well juggled.
Yes, and this, of course, is one of the themes of the book is that there are characters who they have a duty to perform, but they don't necessarily want to do it. Alleyn, obviously, he is the detective. It's his job to figure out what's going on, but really, he just wants to get back to this, Japanese sub-business. He doesn't want to have to, pry into the life of a potentially innocent young woman.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to do that. Just like how the doctor doesn't want to go back to war, but also regrets being away from the front because he can't support his comrades. And Rosamund and Sarah, they have their duties, and even the soldiers have women they're looking to care after in this novel. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I think particularly when we look at the first 11 chapters and how those were a bit slower and a bit tougher to get through.
Yes.
They nicely come back around in here where when we're getting to explore all of the characters' motivations, we get to see, Glossop's kind of weird attitudes to women come around and talk more about his life lonely on the road. And, everything that was set up is used again.
Yeah.
And obviously that's just a sign of good writing, but it is so effective.
Yeah. It's like one of those TV shows that, it takes 3 or 4 seasons to get good, but when it gets good, it gets really good,
I think it's a bit better than that,
It is. I'm exaggerating for effect. But yeah.
I really particularly love just how all of the characters always have this tension as well about being locked in the transport office.
Yes.
Because, supposedly there's maybe a murderer amongst them. Supposedly there's maybe a thief amongst them. And, obviously the locking everyone in with each other is a, iconic play of the murder mystery genre. But I like that because Alleyn is constantly having to bring them out and wander them around the yard and the soldiers are still there and there's still a lot going on the site, it really changes the dynamic of everyone being in that office.
Yeah. He has to check back and forth to make sure that nobody's left and that his trust isn't being betrayed. And that is a particularly interesting kind of note there that the transport officers, situation changes because when Sergeant Bix is there, he leaves the door unlocked. But when Sergeant Bix is not there, he leaves it locked. And so there may be some opportunity there for some skullduggery, for some shams.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to dig into that in the latter half of the show, but there might be something there. By the way, Sergeant Bix, our Watson, he is the most eager beaver I have seen on this show.
I know.
And I love it. It's like a breath of fresh air. He's essentially been conscripted to be the Watson for this scenario. He's not one of our, long-standing characters. He's no Archie Goodwin or actual Watson.
Or Fox.
And that it's as well as a nice little nuance there. And it's almost kind of a sad thing being a novel written, after Ngaio Marsh's death, calling back to, there's Troy, who is Alan's, lover, who he can never seem to find the right words for, and Fox, who he misses dearly. It's the same sort of vibe there, which I thought was really interesting. But Bix will have to do, and Bix is a go-getter. He is willing to throw himself into danger and possible injury and even suspicion, I would say, for the situation because he's just so thrilled to be there.
I think there's something very interesting to be said for the role of a Watson like Bix because Watson, that character archetype, is the audience's in-man. When we look at Knox's rules, the idea that the Watson must be like slightly but very slightly below the intelligence of the average reader, there's something also compelling about the fact that, Stella Duffy as a New Zealander wrote a New Zealander Watson for her story so that we have even more of an in for how she as the author is perceiving these things. And I think that it's a very compelling way, particularly for what is effectively the 33rd entry in a series of looking in and, rebuilding the role of the Watson to something that is, applicable, especially for a modern writer writing an old style book. You need that kind of middle ground, which is what Bix serves as.
Absolutely. She is in many ways her own insert as a character who gets to help out. Bix gets to help out with solving a murder.
Yeah.
And Stella Duffy gets to assist with bringing this long abandoned story to life.
Yeah, I'm sure that the enthusiasm that Duffy felt in getting to work on one of her heroes' books is much the same as Bix would feel getting to work with Alleyn.
It's no mistake, I think, or perhaps it's fate that the excitement that Bix feels comes to the forefront in the morgue, the place where the dead are and where all this kind of mystery is being brought to a front as he helps Alleyn investigate the tunnels apparently that exist under the morgue? Question mark? It's a whole thing. Yeah.
I'm a little curious because you did mention that the next chapters kind of start to make things a bit too obvious getting into this mystery.
Yes.
And I'm a little confused because I thought getting up to this point in the story that the tunnels would be what was that reveal. Because, it's mentioned in chapter 4 that there are quote unquote tunnels running all over the place. But, I was like, okay, cool. That's a throwaway mention. It's going to come back a bit later. But then it kind of gets dropped and, we pay a visit to the morgue and there's tunnels everywhere. And I thought that was probably what was going to be the opening reveal of the third act. But I'm a little confused.
No, it's just there. Well, that's one of the very strange things because if we're talking about Knox's rules, there can be only one secret passage. It seems like we've opened up the Pandora's box of secret passages.
Yes.
We have this apparent network that runs all the way underneath the hospital and possibly even further. It seems to, especially when you think about the idea of the locked room, quote unquote, of the safe and the matron's office, it seems like it could bust that wide open potentially because we just have this secret passage that goes wherever we need it to. It is a very strange choice to have that kind of presented so early on, but I think that Stella Duffy is particularly using it here to show the competency of Inspector Alleyn to have such a potentially big reveal so early on. And I think it's also just to frame the rest of the story to say, yes, there are these weird secret tunnels that not many people know about. Now think about who would know about them, for example, and use that in your reasoning.
The thing is technically we must have no more than one secret room or passage as Father Ronald Knox goes. But I feel like considering the fact that we know about them and we're going to probably spend a lot more time in there in the morgue, that there's going to end up being the second secret room or passage.
Potentially.
It feels inevitable to me because, for all of the places that the money could have been locked away, hidden, all of that stuff, unless we're just going in and checking everything in the morgue and every nook and cranny, which is a bit of a bland way to do it, the weight of the reveal, if it ends up being they searched the morgue for 20 minutes and found the money in a bag.
Yeah. It was like in the corner, in the dark corner there. They couldn't see it because they didn't look there.
That seems a bit underwhelming relative to something like, they kicked down the false wall and there were the criminals stood staring wide-eyed back out at them.
This novel plays quite strangely with secrets, like secret passageways. And,
Yeah.
And also the other Noxian rule that is that any information that passes by the detective must be declared to the reader is also broken. He actually picks up a letter while in the matron's office that we have not learned the contents of. This, in terms of being a fair play mystery, it's not as important as just being a good story. It's one of those detective mysteries. One of those ones. Which is why I'm the one bringing it to the table, of course.
Next thing you're going to tell me we've got hitherto undiscovered poisons and devices. Next thing you're going to tell me that there's not actually a corpse in this murder mystery because the matron isn't actually dead and we're breaking Van Dyne's rules as well. Next thing you know, there's just going to be a dog just sitting in the tunnel who barks as we walk past to break an extra Van Dyne rule for fun.
If this novel ends with a dog barking in the tunnels that are like echoes and that's how they like know where the killer is, you can have 1,000 points. It's done. I'll just give them to you.
Good.
You deserve it at that point.
Good.
No, I definitely don't think that this novel is a Noxian 100% faithful story. Which is fine. Because, it's written in 2018. Look, it's been a long time.
It has been.
Most of those rule writing people are dead anyway. Who cares?
Yes.
Sure.
And, it's all very tongue-in-cheek, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
We can discuss Nox and Van Dyne ad infinitum, and we will continue to.
And we do it every other episode we do.
The thing I'm concerned about here, Herds, is that if we get to the end of this book and I have to say that this mystery isn't fair, because I feel like we are nearing that point. There's a lot of rubbish going on here that just, I don't know.
Look,
Herds.
I think you can give it a good crack.
And I will on the next part of the show.
I think you give it an excellent crack. I've heard some of your ramblings in your sleep. I've heard some of your positive thoughts on who might be the killer and what sorts of conspiracy going on. I think they're pretty interesting. So we'll have to see the third part, what's going on there.
Well, this is Death of the Reader. We are Flex and Herds on your Murder Mystery World Tour with Stella Duffy and Ngaio Marsh.
Yeah.
We are talking chapters 12 to 23 today, and we'll be back in just a second.
Just 1 second.
You're listening to Death of the Reader here on 2SER. We are Flex and Herds. This is your Murder Mystery World Tour, and we are talking Money in the Morgue by Ngaio Marsh and Stella Duffy. And, oh no.
Do you have the money in the bag, Flex?
We have reached the part of the story. Chapters 12 to 23 today is what we're discussing, and that means it is high time for me to pose a solution and then run for the hills with the money like the matron and the vicar are planning on doing.
Oh, I see. Interesting. Well, we'll have to see what you can do here because as mentioned previously, this is quite the tricky little murder. May not be entirely fair play. There's definitely not Noxian. Definitely not Noxian. I'll tell you that with no holds barred.
Have we really done a novel on this show that we have called Not Fair? Like, I feel like we need a contingency plan, like printed on the wall, just like in case of unfair play.
Break glass. And there's like a shotgun. Oh no, that's not good. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. Look, obviously, I think that you are clever enough, and I think that there are enough clues that you can solve. Certainly, the majority of it, and
I've got a track record.
You've got a good track record.
I've only lost 1 point against you so far.
Yeah, on a technicality, which I stand by.
And deservedly so.
Because you're the rules guy. I will use your technicalities against you,
that is
sir,
fine.
until I die.
Listen, Herds, I am still bitter about it, but I am bitter with understanding.
Okay, but it's not. Today is not about technicalities.
Well, it will be.
It will be. Maybe next. Maybe it will be later. But for Money in the Morgue, I keep wanting to say Murder in the Morgue. It's not. It's Money in the Morgue.
Murder in the Rue Morgue is perhaps one of the first murder mysteries ever written.
Yeah. We won't spoil that one on the show, but it's a bit of a hairy time. A hairy murder mystery.
Carry on.
If you know what I said.
Carry on, Herds.
Okay. But it is now time to solve the murder of not the matron, the murder of Mr. Brown?
Yes. So
Tell me what your thoughts
last
are. Let's lay it
time
down.
on the show, I was scatterbrained, confused, scared,
I
running
know.
for my life.
You were
I didn't
possessed.
know who was going who, where was going where, why
Yep.
was going what.
Yep.
I think I've got it straight.
Look, I'm ready for this. Won't you lay down, what is the premise of your theory today? You think it's two separate crimes, Flex?
Yes. The analogy I used last time was that I was on the right path, but I didn't know which way I was facing, and I was being led about by a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've at least gotten the blindfold off. I don't know if I'm not being led around by a stranger just yet. So the two crimes I think that had happened is that Mr. Brown has been killed by Sidney Brown.
Yep.
Over the property of his farm.
Okay.
And I believe that the matron, who we believe to be the murder victim, is not actually dead and is waltzing around laundering money.
So you think that the murder in this case is not the presented body, it is in fact the body of old Mr. Brown, that he's the murder in this murder mystery?
I believe
positing.
as such. That is the way that we are fulfilling dear Van Dyne's rule that there must be a corpse.
So you believe that the young Sidney Brown has murdered his grandfather?
Yes.
Pray tell why and how?
Okay, so last week on the show, I said that it was plainly obvious to me, purely because Sidney Brown was the most suspicious character to get out as soon as he left.
Okay.
Like almost to the point where it was so on the nose that I wasn't sure if I should believe it.
Okay, sure.
Because he comes out, it's like 45 minutes in with the guy, suddenly he's dead, and then he's like, nah, can't stay here. I've got things to attend to in town.
Right.
So I thought
interesting.
that was a little on the nose.
Okay.
I thought it was a little suspicious. It was obviously framed as such.
I'm surprised that you haven't pinged on Rosamund Fasten at all. She is the character who immediately identifies the detective as a detective, and then in her interrogation does nothing but clash wits with him. You don't find her suspicious at all?
Not at all. She's the murder mystery fan.
Okay.
You know, the book takes a lot of time, as a lot of Golden Age mysteries do and did, to point out that they are within the genre they are in and going, oh, well, in detective fiction, they'd tell you that this was happening, but in this book, which is entirely separate. I believe Rosamund is the vector for that joke.
Okay, fair enough.
So what I think has happened...
And jokes cannot kill.
Exactly. What I think has happened is that the bar where Suki Johnson, the brother of Blakey Farmer Boy...
Suki is a lady. Suki Johnson is the woman that...
Sorry, the sister of Blakey. Anyway.
That Maurice is apparently sweet on.
Yes. So I believe that the quote-unquote illegal gambling den that Inspector Alleyn says he is not here to investigate is in fact the thing he is, going to end up discovering is the problem here. In that Sidney, who supposedly while he keeps to himself over at that there bar, still is sweet on Sidney Johnson, who is also sweet on by Sanders. There's a big mix-up there. I believe that Porset, who is the anti-authoritarian soldier, is blackmailing with a gambling debt dear Sidney Brown into killing his father, so killing his grandfather.
For what purpose?
Because...
what do you get from killing an old man?
The farm.
Oh, I see.
Which... I'm still not sure which direction that's going in, because it seems like Brayling is the one that wants the farm, but Porset is the one that I think is doing the blackmailing. So something over in their gambling den there has led such that two people is sweet on Suki Johnson. One person wants a farm. Porset's anti-authoritarian. Blakey is receiving signals from a Japanese base because he owns a share in a radio company and has a radio mast up the hill.
You said Brayling was sweet on Suki Johnson?
No.
No?
No.
Well, how does he figure into this then?
He seems like the one that would want the farm because he's the one that goes, he's the one, like the Maori man who wants to settle down, right?
He gets to see his wife for half an hour apparently during these gambling tirades.
So I think that bundle of people there is the crime. So just to lay that out straight again.
I was going to say, lay that out for me.
Sidney Brown killed his grandfather because he was blackmailed by Porset.
Okay. Makes sense.
Somehow in that blackmail, I believe the farm is going to probably Brayling.
Okay.
And
for his family?
Yes, and this is over gambling debt, but also probably because Sanders and Sidney Brown are sweet on Suki Johnson.
Okay.
And I believe that somewhere in there, Blakey, Suki's brother,
Okay.
is the one receiving the signals at his radio mast up on the hill higher up, higher up the mountain.
Cool.
So I'm not. I will say I don't know what the whole signals thing is about. It just seems to be there's a war on and the Japanese are telling us to do a thing.
Fair enough. Can you nail down among that, because you've given about like 5 different characters there. You got Suki Johnson, Duncan Blakey or whatever, and all these different soldiers.
Yes.
Which out of those do you think are the bad eggs?
Pause
it. Just pause it.
Yeah, I don't know with Brayling and Sanders. Like, obviously, they're not exactly morally straight characters.
Okay.
But I think that the one that we are going to be pointing fingers at the end is going to be Porset, because he's the anti-authoritarian. He's the guy that comes in and it's like, I've never been much of a yes sir, no sir guy.
Fair enough.
I feel like we're leaning on that whole thing there. And then, Sidney Brown's obviously killed his father, but I feel like it's Porset that's talked him into that.
Okay. What about Duncan Blakey and Suki Johnson? Do you think they're bad eggs? Do you think they're in on this? Or
I feel like it's going to end up that Blakey is like the spy or whatever, but he hasn't really featured enough to my mind.
Well, he doesn't exist in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he's an off-screen character. He's probably going to be the guy we meet down in the tunnels later who's like, what, me? No. But I don't have much to go on there. And again, that's kind of just like the, hey, there's a war on, I'm the spy kind of thing.
So you think that Sidney Brown, Bob Porset, and Blakey are like doing a crime, killing an old man and getting a farm.
Yes.
And you think that the matron is faking her death for some reason?
I believe...
What's on the other side?
You were saying last week that I didn't suspect a Glossop or Sister Comfort at all. Which, between this and last week's episode, I was a little concerned. I was like, you know what? He's right. Those characters have said a lot of things.
It's true.
But what I think Herds is going on is the classic detective fiction maneuver that the character who is not suspicious is explaining the actually bad character's motive.
Okay.
So Glossop and Sister Comfort are constantly complaining that they don't have enough resources. It's very hard to get things happening. They're out in the country. It's very lonely. There's not enough money to go around for Glossop's ideas and projects, that sort of thing. I think that is the motive for what the matron and the vicar are doing.
Do you think it's strange at all that Sister Comfort, despite apparently being the strongest personality in the hospital, is just going along with whatever Alleyn wants?
I just
think it's very funny that you haven't figured her in at all to your solution.
It's difficult for me to say because part of me wants to just pin that as being like, she is a woman who is good at her job, and the strong part of her character is her just like being the powerhouse there.
Okay.
That, she's used to dealing with a bunch of damn soldiers and she has to put on a strong face for them. And, obviously she's a very strong character even when she's not around the soldiers, but I don't see a lot happening with her.
Yeah, sure.
I'm like, I'm torn because if I'm wrong, it's going to be her that I'm wrong about, and I know that.
Well, that's why I'm poking on you, right? That's why I'm poking with your thoughts there, because she's a character who ostensibly has a very significant, role in the story. Yeah. She's the person who would take charge after the matron has passed.
Yeah.
Right? And she's the character who everyone says, I'd rather deal with Bix or the matron than that Sister Comfort.
Yeah.
She's also the first person spotted on the scene of the crime. She's spotted around the porch, kind of looking over the office like, it's very interesting that you've just completely neglected her. You don't think she could be the killer, or she has some relation to the crime here?
Absolutely not. If she is involved, my opinion is going to be that she has been told what the matron is doing, why the matron is doing it, and is making it happen because she believes it's for the right reasons. And also, she's going to be the one that takes over in the end. Be that her being corrupt and wanting power, but power in a country hospital.
There's not much power.
There's not much power to go around.
There's not a lot of that there. That's fine.
So I think that her character is loyal to her duty, and if she knows about the crime, she is probably a willing if reluctant accomplice.
Okay.
But I imagine it's more that she is again a vector for something else in the story. She is a vector for the frustrations that have led the matron and the vicar to do what they're going to do.
All right.
Which is that they are trying to basically embezzle the pay slips from Glossop.
Why would they do that?
To fund the hospital.
Oh, I see. How are they going to do that if they're criminals?
I have no clue.
Okay.
But I cannot see any other damn reason in this story. And this, if it is accurate, is the thing that I'm most concerned about when it comes to fair play. Because these characters are generous. These characters fill their roles. And I just, like, are we going to get to the end and they're going to be like, yeah, I'm just going to run away with this money and pay some people to come fix the hospital? And what? Nobody's going to ask where the hospital got all this money from? I don't know. I don't understand, Herds. But this is the way that the book is leading me down this path now. It's gone from you being the stranger guiding me by the hand to the book, and I don't know.
Flex, I think you've gone mad. I think you've gone about as mad as I was during the last book that we did.
It's so obvious that it's the vicar and the matron, but like all that they are is nice to people.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it, Herds.
Flex, I can see you've gone red. You've gone slightly mad. I think you have a case of the insanities. We're going to have to put you in hospital soon. Well, anyway.
So, yeah, I think that the matron took the draft that Hughes mentions in his interrogation. I think that all of this is to do with them being kind people and, always being a shoulder to lean on, for example, with Hughes with his night terrors and the vicar being there for all of the soldiers. But I just, Herds.
Yeah.
That's
right. I feel like you put forward a theory. That's all I could ask
There
for
have been many times on this show, Herds. There have been many times on this show.
It comes out. Here we go.
And the show that we did before this one.
Yeah.
That I have said something along the lines of, I think this is what it is, but I hope it is not going to be. And the majority of those times, I have either been wrong or ended up being dragged around to liking it.
Okay.
Not once have I ever gotten to a solution, been right about it, and disappointed by it.
Fair enough.
So either I'm wrong, or I'm going to like it, or Stella, Duffy, and Ngaio Marsh have achieved something new.
Yep. I agree. I agree with everything you've just said there.
And I really hope that it is, I'm going to be made to like it.
I want to let you know.
Because I don't want to be wrong.
I want to let you know that I had some similar situations in this novel where I thought that can't possibly be that obvious. That's ludicrous. That's insane. But I kind of love the ending to this novel.
All right.
And I hope that you, as you read through the last 14 chapters of this novel, will enjoy it and come to love the beautiful mess that you're about to uncover.
Oh, good.
I know, it's been excellent. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you've laid it out pretty concretely. You want to go over it one more time before we leave the good people?
No, just in case I contradict myself.
Just in case.
In case.
Like, actually, no, it's not this.
Yeah, next week, chapters 24 to 37, and maybe the last time I appear on the show. This may be the peak.
This might be the death of you. Well, look forward to next week for more Money in the Morgue by Ngaio Marsh and Stella Duffy.
We have Flex and Herds. This is Death of the Reader, and we'll see you then.